Say USF, you could actually equate them to basically they're not really America. They're not really stars. I don't know why these people have stars on their stripes. They're basically just pretenders. Pretty much, they were supposed to be my force or something, but they really weren't. They're not Air Force. USAF stands for United States Armored Force, not even Air Force. Like I said, they portray themselves as Air Force, but they're not Air Force. Hiding as an armored force. They're United States Armored Force. They're supposed to be stars and basically my group. But I don't know. Like I said, by the time they were done, everybody would want them dead, and I think they might have been my group. I don't know. They have a star on their shoulder, so that means something. Anyway, they're supposed to be protecting the peace, protecting everyone, but basically they're supposed to be good people, and I don't know. You'd have to ask them to see if they actually were good. But what I think they did pretty much, what they ended up doing is pretty much they would protect these armored piece of shits would walk in. And I think they ended up turning against their people, their leaders, because they wear a star on their shoulder, so they're supposed to be LS, my group. But somewhere along the line, John McCain or basically Richard Nixon or somebody basically took them over, and they ended up becoming terrorists or basically responsible for some of the weird things, and more like just like a hey girl, let's fuck group, basically, and basically oppressors or whatever. I think you'd have to find out the real thing. Anyway, they got taken over basically, but they say United States Air Force, but they're not Air Force, and even they would say we're not Air Force, we're Armored Force. People later on during the debriefing would be like we're not Air Force, we're Armored Force, because that's the Armored Force division basically, and basically body suits, body armor, stuff like that. That's what they were designing. That's what they were building. That's what they were manufacturing was armor, basically. But hiding as Air Force people, but they weren't Air Force. Like I said, they're United States Armored Force. They're not even American. They're not even America. That's why, cute girl, by the way. I wonder how many like I said, the girls they were just there for the girls were just there for pussy mostly. Not even their brains, basically. And they did a bunch of sex. They basically pressed a bunch of people, left no witnesses, and pretty much they just basically built a bunch of guns and basically like kids playing around the world. And basically John McCain's or Richard Nixon's private little like, hey lad, let's get the USF to do it. Well, a bunch of people basically this force would secure fuel, research armor, build armor, and basically provide gear for Richard Nixon and John McCain to, like I said, when they debriefed, everybody was like, "You're Air Force," and everyone, and they were like, "No, we're Armored Force. That's the Armored Force symbol." So everyone was like, "What? You're Armored Force?" And they were like, "Yeah, we're USAF, United States Armored Force. We do tanks and armor and armored gear and armored warfare." And people are like, "But you said it says Air Force on your." It's like, yeah, well, I guess they ran out of uniforms. Anyway, but no one, John McCain and Richard Nixon didn't want them to want anybody to know what they were basically. And they're supposed to be protecting people, but and basically be good people. But like I say, John McCain, Richard Nixon, they kind of took them over. Anyway, and basically had them building body armor suits or whatever suits, and pretty much like I should talk to them because it's like, dude, you went astray, Anyway, it was my money basically that funded them, and basically these people, they thought they were doing the world a favor, and they were actually basically just protecting Richard Nixon and John McCain and a bunch of pieces of shit. And even some of them. Because the higher ups would be like would see a hot girl and be like, "Come on, let's fuck, let's go, come on, baby, you want it," and like the girl would say, "Can I just get up? Can I just walk out of here?" And they'd be like, "No, you can't leave. There's only one way to leave USAF, and that's in a body bag." Truth is, they could have just walked out. You know, and nothing would have happened. Nobody would have touched them. They're military. You know, but supposedly they were supposed to be a top secret national security group, and they really weren't. They were just a bunch of kids basically helping out Richard Nixon and John McCain, and basically just securing fuel for people who wanted to fly jets. And basically just stealing, pretty much. You know, they had no idea what they were just young 20-year-old kids, and they had no idea what they were getting into. And they basically just took over a building. Like, the people that were running them had no money, and they needed them to make these. They needed these kids to make them money. You use these kids to the military group to hear stuff, and they mostly just used the girls for sex slaves and all kinds of other stuff. And they would even later on say that, I mean, we were sex slaves. The women would be like, well, we were sex slaves. You know, they would just, John McCain or Richard Nixon would come up to us and be like, give it to me, baby. You know, and like I say, and then they would go and they would shoot people, and they would believe that they were shooting like some terrorists or something, and then they would later on find out, no, he owned the 7-Eleven down the street. Yeah, he wouldn't give them money. So, like I say, people found out that basically, you know, these were the people killing the Middle East. Every one of these people would become guilty of a war crime or be killed or whatever. I'm not exactly sure which group this is, but basically for years these people went over the Middle East and basically shot and killed people. You know, they're United States military armored force. So they would drive tanks, they would wear body armor suits and stuff like that, and basically they were protecting John McCain, Richard Nixon, and basically the senators. And basically these were the terrorists, pretty much. Well, actually, John McCain and Richard Nixon, those were the terrorists, but these were the people backing up the terrorists. I ever wondered where's their army? How they do this? You know, John McCain and Richard Nixon, they would fly these girls, and they would actually have sex with these girls. Like if you were mildly ugly like that girl, you'd be she would have to give up sex. Like, well, you got to give up something if you're gonna be here. And they would basically just, you know. Eventually, a 20-year-old kid took them, or one of the leaders shot some other people and took them over or whatever. Basically, you know, hiding under national security, but they're actually not national security. Richard Nixon started the group. It was my group. It was my money that paid for all their gear. You know, blue guns and all that other stuff. But, you know, like I say, Blue was actually JFK was pretending to be Blue Man. He would wear a blue suit, and he was threatening people, and basically he would use these people to pretty much torture and back him up. So they thought they were good people, you know, having blue guns, and they thought they worked for Blue, and they actually didn't. They actually worked for JFK and Richard Nixon and John McCain, and basically John McCain's private bitches. Like I said, they actually took over. They're not even like, this is all just, you know, it's like a frat group basically. That's not official military. Nothing there is official military. You look at it and it's like, and they're like, we were in a gym. We were in this old abandoned warehouse. You know, we're not, you know, they're basically a sex shop. They weren't really even like that's not a military room. You know, those aren't official people. I mean, it's just, this is all bullshit. You know, they're just kids that were too naive to understand what was really going on. You know, I mean, look at that folder. That's not official. That's not official military stuff. What's official military around here? Nothing. You know, these are just kids, and they're basically just sex slaves. You know. Anyway, I might take them over at some point in time and actually turn them around. I don't know. Like, realistically, they're being funded by me. So, and poor people, like all these young kids, they had no idea what was going on. Like, you see them now, and they think they're military. They think they're going to get benefits, and they're not. They're just, you know, some guy, person basically just started this military group and got all these kids. And I think some of them are actually like people that would have gone to jail, but instead they went here. And a lot of them are forced to have sex with other people. Because they're into this thing, and they think they're part of some top secret group or some national security group, and they're actually like convicts or something like that. Anyway, I don't really know that much about them, but basically they're not who they thought they were something special, and they really weren't. They were just, you know, Basically, somebody was like, I think I'll have like 56 or 250 sex slaves and little private warriors. Like, they're just young kids. Look at them. They're